Do you think she has any just kind of inherent weaknesses or...
I mean, I don't really believe in weaknesses in people.
Okay. I like that outlook.
Yeah.
I don't buy the Mary Sue thing anyway. I find the term sexist in itself because it's Mary Sue. I don't think there's a thing called Ryan Craig.
It's been a few years since the final film in Disney's Star Wars trilogy. And in the wake of all the chaos, it was always clear that there's one glaring issue that stands out above all the others. The characters, or rather, the lack thereof. With none more so than Rey. Rey was a character that never really seems to grow or evolve throughout the course of the films. We meet her as a scrappy scavenger in Jakku, and while there's some initial intrigue in her mysterious past and her apparent connection to the Force, that intrigue quickly fades as we come to realize that there's not much more to her beyond that. She was a blank slate, a Mary Sue who never really faced any true adversity or overcomes any significant challenges. She's not a character, so much as she is a plot device, a vessel for the writers to move the story along without actually having to do any heavy lifting. But of course, the problems with the sequel characters go far beyond Rey. Finn was so underdeveloped, his potential as a character was largely squandered in favor of cheap comic relief and half-baked romance plots. And then there's Kylo Ren, a character whose motivations are so murky and poorly defined that he comes across as little more than a moody, angsty teenager. But the whole trilogy was built around Rey, and she was probably the worst written character I've seen in a long time.
How Rey beat Kylo Ren.
Why is that so hard for people to get? Like, she's super strong and he's like so weak.
He kicked his ass. That's how Rey beat Kylo Ren.
You know, there's always going to be people when you make something that's somewhat controversial that are just flat out not going to like what you're doing.
Right.
And we didn't make the movie for them.
Characters are like seasoning. Too little and the dish falls flat. Too much and it overshadows everything else. It's a balance that, when achieved, can elevate a story. But when a character becomes too central, they become a black hole, sucking all the air out of the room and leaving the other players in the shadows. This one-dimensional focus prevents the development of potentially more engaging characters and ultimately lead to a dull story. They relied too heavily on Rey and forgot to give the other characters room to shine. It's what happens when writers become too in love with their own creation and fail to see the bigger picture. Look, we all know that most Mary Sues come off as pretty self-centered and indulgent. It's not exactly a revelation, but when a writer, or Kathleen Kennedy, goes and makes their character so perfect that they're practically shining with the light of 1,000 suns, they're really just prioritizing their own desires over the needs of the story, and it's become a pretty common problem in Disney's Star Wars. There comes a point in any good story where the narrative structure needs to take precedence over the writer's personal desires. The writer needs to do what makes sense for the story, even if it's not necessarily what they want. When a character is written as too perfect, like Rey was, it becomes way too easy for them to overcome any challenges or obstacles that come their way. And who really wants to watch a movie where the protagonist just breezes through everything without so much as a struggle?
How Rey beat Kylo Ren.
Why is that so hard for people to get? Like, she's super strong and he's like so weak.
He kicked his ass. That's how Rey beat Kylo Ren.
The Mary Sue thing I was just confused by. Like, the Mary Sue thing I just didn't get because it wasn't true. The Mary Sue thing in itself is sexist.
Yeah.
Because it's a name of a woman. And everyone was saying that Luke had exactly the same thing. I think Rey is incredibly vulnerable.
Without giving anything away, it's time for the Jedi to end. Are you kidding me? Yeah. I was the most optimistic, hopeful character in all the movies. How could he arrive at a place where he's a cynical hermit? It's beyond comprehension.
Luke Skywalker is a fan favorite for good reason. In the vast Star Wars universe, his journey stands out as a masterclass in self-discovery and personal growth. He begins his story as a wide-eyed dreamer from a remote planet. He longs for adventure and excitement beyond the desolate sands of his home world. As fate would have it, Luke is thrown headfirst into a mission to rescue Princess Leia and overthrow the tyrannical Empire. Along the way, he faces numerous challenges and grapples with difficult decisions that test his resolve and push him to his limits. But he emerges as a hero, having learned the true meaning of courage and what it means to stand up for what's right. And that's the beauty of his journey. It shows us that even the most unlikely of people can become a hero if they're willing to face their fears and overcome their challenges. Of course, Luke's story wasn't without its flaws. He didn't start off as some infallible superhero, effortlessly beating enemies and winning battles without breaking a sweat. He had to work for it. He had to earn his victories. And when he faced off against Darth Vader for the first time, he didn't make the seasoned Sith Lord look like an absolute amateur. That would just be silly. No writer would be that silly. Well. One of the best aspects of Luke's character that made him so well written was his willingness to learn and grow. When we first meet him, he's impulsive and hot-headed, often acting on emotion rather than reason. But as he trains with Obi-Wan and later with Yoda, he learns to master his emotions and harness the power of the Force in a way that never would have been possible. His complex relationship with his father added a new layer of depth to Luke's arc. He's able to redeem his father by bringing him back to the light, a powerful act of love and forgiveness that underscores the depth of his character. That is, of course, before Disney decided to ruin everything and bring back the character that ultimately made Anakin's sacrifice absolutely worthless.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
You see, while Luke was on a quest to find himself and his place in the galaxy, Rey was already a girl boss who knew she could do anything she set her mind to. Luke started off as young and naive, while Rey was a fierce and independent young woman who had apparently been held back by societal norms and expectations. After many trials and tribulations, Luke evolved into a seasoned and powerful Jedi Knight who was ready to take on the responsibility of leading and safeguarding the galaxy from the forces of darkness. And this transformation was one of the most gratifying character arcs in the history of cinema. What happened to Rey at the end of her trilogy?
Rey Skywalker.
Who is this guy? How did the most optimistic, hopeful character in the galaxy turn into this hermit who says it's time for the Jedi to end? I read that and I said, what? I mean, that's not what a Jedi does.
How Rey beat Kylo Ren.
Why is that so hard for people to get? Like, she's super strong and he's like so weak.
He kicked his ass. That's
Thank
how
you.
Rey beat Kylo Ren.
Who are you? I'm Rey.
Not
Rey
you.
who?
Not you. Oh God. No. No!
Please no. Please no. Where the fuck is Rey?
Rey Skywalker.
Rey's abilities in the Disney trilogy were downright unbelievable. And not in a good way. She literally could do it all. Fly spaceships, repair machinery, fight with a lightsaber, and use the Force better than most Jedi. And yet, we're given zero explanation for how she acquired these skills. Kennedy's writers just decided to make her a superhero and call it a day. And then there's her encyclopedic knowledge of everything in Han Solo's ship. I mean, the guy has been flying the Falcon for decades, and of course Rey somehow knows how to fix it better than he does. The filmmakers really did want us to believe that Rey was always destined for greatness, that she was born with some sort of superhuman ability to be amazing and brave and stunning. But to me, that's just lazy writing. I've always thought this lack of explanation for Rey's abilities undermined her character. And we all know why this happened and who's responsible for it. A very daring act of self-insertion from Kennedy. What's most frustrating is that Rey's lack of growth is a glaringly bad aspect of her arc. Throughout the films, she remains a powerful and capable character, but without any significant changes or growth. The only difference is that we're told she's holding herself back from reaching her full potential. Luke was never a perfect hero. His flaws, his struggles, and the anticipation of watching him overcome them are what kept audiences invested in his journey. Without those elements, the entire story would have fallen flat. And that's precisely what happened with Rey.
I think the true feminism is bringing what is particular to women, because we are different, that's undeniable, to the opportunities that men have. So it's not, going into some place and just behaving like a man or necessarily desiring what men want just because you can get it.